Hello, everyone. Welcome in. It is good to see you all. I know it's been like 5 million years since I've last streamed, but since I've been slowly transitioning into vampires and LARP, I figured it would be a great time to kind of get they're gone. Oh no, they're gone. Hold on. There we go. Everyone's on screen. Always scuff every time. Um But I figured it'd be a great time to share the hobby and help anyone new wanting to get into LARP, vampires in general, and Darkness Emergent, which I have been going to for almost a year now. Going to be a year in November. So I have with me RC and James. If you guys want to introduce yourselves.
Starting. My name's James. I've been LARPing for, let's just say, a very long time. Primarily a storyteller, but I have also done work with the World of Darkness. I was part of the White Wolf demo team when I was much younger, and I have attended a few of the Darkness Emergent events, and that's where I got to meet all of you. So,
Yeah, my name is Arcelia and I'm the brand director for By Night Studios. I do a lot of their marketing and communications. I have been LARPing for a bit. I want to say playing Vampire the Masquerade longer than that. But I got back into LARPing really seriously, back in Saturnalia when Saturnalia was launched. So that was about 2022. And I have been kind of LARPing since then, primarily focused on Darkness Emergent, and it's been a lot of fun. So, yeah.
Yeah. Uh, so to kind of start us off, how did you all get into LARP? Like, what drew you in to start LARPing?
Yeah, so for
RC.
me, yeah, I
Oh.
got it. I got this. So for me, right, again, I started playing Vampire the Masquerade when I was in high school, right? I saw the Clan Assamite book, and I'm like, I'm sold. Let's do this, right? And so you start off with sitting around a table, right, with your friends, and then you realize all of this that you're doing already, right? Can really be it translates over to LARP very easily, right? You're playing pretend here, right? So, a couple years after that, we found a local LARP troop, right? And we did that for a little bit, and that was a lot of fun. So, I got started there, right? The transition between like playing tabletop RPGs, especially Vampire the Masquerade, is really easy, right? When you have these organizations like Mess, CAM, etc., right, to help you get involved, and then those troop games are so important, right? And I know James has been LARPing locally for a long time, so I'm going to shoot it right back at you.
Yeah, for me, I was very fortunate. I was very young, probably about 14, 15. I had good friends of mine. They were a family of role players. Like that was their entire family's hobby. So through them, I got exposed to things like BattleTech, Mech Warrior, Space Hulk. I played D&D, um, and around the time the Gray Book LARP came out in the 90s, mid 90s. I was, like I said, 14 or 15. They were like, hey, I know that we played one tabletop session of this vampire game, but there's this thing called LARP. Do you want to come try it out? And I was like, well, what's that? And they're like, well, it's just like the same thing that we did, but you dress up and you do it.
Yeah.
And I had to have a permission slip from my parents to do it. Their parents had to be there because obviously adult content and all of that. Um, and yeah, that's how I got into LARP. It was just I went in as a kid, and then mostly did troop games. Did a little bit of MES back when it was called the Camarilla back in the day. Um, and eventually, I became a storyteller. Very young. I want to say around 19. No, I was probably about 19ish. I ran my first troop game, and I've just been running games and participating in all things role playing games for a long time.
Once you
Nice.
get started, you just can't stop, right? That's
No,
what
Yeah.
they
yeah.
say about LARP, yeah. Which is fantastic, right? You just get like addicted. It's so much fun. So dressing up
Hmm.
and pretending to really be in these immersive environments, I think that's what makes LARP like so great.
Definitely what happened with me, having only gotten into to it last year. Uh,
Well, welcome, because you
Yeah.
know what? It is the new players that keeps the games fresh
Yes.
for the veterans like us.
Yeah,
yeah.
definitely. Yeah. Yeah, new players are so important, right? Getting individuals who have been just either introduced to Vampire the Masquerade, right? Or have been playing Vampire the Masquerade for a long time at home, right, with their friends, getting them out there and actually getting them involved in the LARP scene. That's what breathes life, right, into the LARP scene, which is already kind of small and very niche, right? It was big in the 2010s, and then the pandemic really hurt it, right? And so
Mhm.
since 2022 or so, we've really been trying to bring it back. And it's been an uphill battle, right? But in the United States, the LARP scene's getting better and better. More blockbuster LARPs are out there, right? More troop games are out there too, which is really amazing. It's a very exciting time for LARP.
Yeah, the pandemic definitely took out a lot. I know when me and Connor were looking for a local troop to try and test the waters, the troop that was in Albuquerque is just gone right after the pandemic.
Yeah, that was rough.
Hopefully one day it'll come back though.
It's coming back. I mean, and I gotta say, right, the World of Darkness website, By Night Studios website, they have a listing of local LARPs, right, in your area. You can always go there and find out, hey, is there a local LARP, or even a blockbuster LARP near me, right? So
Mhm.
you have those tools, and you see, we have data that shows that it's on the uptick, right? And also you have the European LARP companies, LARPing in Europe is big, right?
Mhm.
They've been doing it for a long time. And some of them are coming over into the United States and putting on these blockbuster LARPs, right? We're helping smaller studios in the US to put on these blockbuster LARPs, and that's really great, right? The more people we get LARPing, I think the better. My preference again is Vampire the Masquerade, right? But I'm a little biased, so
It has
I
definitely
think
been a lot more fun than, some of the like, I've gone and watched a couple of, like, D&D LARPs. I
Mhm,
definitely feel like Vampire is a lot better social-wise.
I will be a little bit biased here because I do love Vampire the Masquerade, and it is my number one favorite role playing system of all time. But I did spend years working for a troupe called Mythos Houston, putting on once a
mhm,
year blockbuster Cthulhu LARPs,
mhm,
Mm.
and we would always run those at OwlCon at Rice University. And there's something really special about a game in which you have 100 players that the intended purpose is for all of them to go mad by the end of the evening.
mhm. Yeah.
Um, but to the other point, excuse me, when you were talking about kind of because of the pandemic, the numbers have been kind of impacted when it comes to LARP. One of the things to consider, though, is um, the popularity of things like Critical Role and LA by
Mhm.
Night and
Yeah.
New York by Night. Those programs and what Twitch has brought
Mhm.
and YouTube has brought to the role playing sphere blows my mind, because
Yeah.
I've talked to people that never had a single bit of interest in the world of darkness, caught a little bit of some like LA by Night, and they're like, "What is this? I know
Mhm.
that you play it. Can you tell me more about it?" And
Mhm.
like that's what we want, right? Like that's the yes, please come here. Let me tell you about this wonderful hobby that I have.
Yes. Yeah, I keep saying that when, we're living in amazing times when Critical Role is selling out Madison Square Garden,
Mhm.
right? I mean, like, that's just fantastic, and it's really, really exciting. Shows like Stranger Things too, right?
That's
Bringing
true.
on, like, D&D into the mainstream also assists with that a whole lot,
Mhm.
right? But, I think those, for Vampire the Masquerade, those by nights, the live plays really, have helped, right, in bringing new players, especially during the time of the pandemic when folks were just kind of looking for things to watch and get their minds off of things, right? You saw a lot of folks watching the live plays, and then also getting together and doing games over Discord, right, online when they
Mhm.
couldn't sit around the table anymore, right? And I think that right there was a good point for us to kind of launch off it and grow, right? Even despite the fact that the world stopped for a hot 2 years or so, right? So yeah.
I had actually retired from the role playing sphere for about 8 to 9 years
Oh,
by the
wow.
time the pandemic had happened. And it was because of the pandemic that a few of my friends who were watching Critical Role were like, "Hey, we know you used to role play. Would you like to come join us?" And I was like, "God, I really have missed it. I just was so busy
Mm,
with life and other things." Did a very small D&D campaign, and that is ultimately what led me to Saturnalia and what
mhm.
got me back into being in part of Vampire the way that I am now.
Yeah. Yeah, Saturnalia was that was exciting, right?
It
Very
was a
exciting LARP.
wild time.
Yeah, it was.
So the next question, for your guys' very first LARP characters or your event, you can talk about either. What was it like your very first time?
Yeah, so for me, I won't talk about the very first time that I did LARP. I want to talk about Saturnalia a little bit because it was the first blockbuster LARP that I attended, right? And
Hmm.
typically, I was used to, if I was going to go to a LARP, I was going to make my own character and kind of start from there, right? For Saturnalia, they had seeds. So some LARPs will allow you to kind of just make an original character from scratch, right? That's like Darkness Emergent, for example. But other LARPs will have seeds. And so you can select from these character seeds, right? And kind of breathe life into that seed. And so I decided to get out of my comfort zone. So my favorite clans of all time are the Ban Hakim and the La Sombra, right?
Hmm.
And I despise the Tremere. So who doesn't? And I said, you know what? I think I'm gonna play a Tremere, right? And I did that. So I played Dr. Dulcinea, and she was a Tremere therapist, right? And it was a lot of fun playing her. Really, it got me out of my comfort zone. The seed that I got is that she was, oh, she's a Tremere, and she's kind of a therapist, kind of a madame, right? And she will entice kindred and mortals into giving her secrets, right? Whether it be through like using blood sorcery or whether it be through using, other disciplines essentially. And so it wanted to be a little bit more sexy, but I decided to be more like I'm going to be like a therapist, like a sexy therapist, right? So I really I went with that, right? I decided to there was not like a side LARP, but like the pre LARP to the main LARP was on a steamboat, right? And the elder
Hell of a
had
night.
passed away. Yeah, the elder had passed away, so it was like a funeral, right, for the elder. I spoke with the SCs and I'm like, you know what? Like, I think that I'm gonna have Dulcinea be like his confidant, right? Like, give me a secret that I can like assist with, kind of, moving through the play that night, right? And they did. Reverie Studios, along with By Night Studios, were the ones that actually put on Saturnalia, right? And the Reverie cast were great. And so that was a lot of fun to do. So I got out of my comfort zone, right? I got to dress up really cool. I really enjoy that. I love dressing up. I mean, I think a lot of those people that really like enjoy LARP just kind of love, really like getting into your character and, stepping into those shoes essentially, right? And you do it by like dressing up. So anyway, Dulcinea was great. She was very charismatic, right? Very smart, and was trying to get everyone to eat the little drug candy that she had brought, which kind of like uses your inhibitions and allows her to, poke your mind a little bit and get you out. That was, I think,
Oh,
the
hold
the
on.
character that I played. What was that?
Discord sound is
Oh
messing
no,
up. Oh no.
you guys hear me?
uh,
Testing, 1, 2.
you're just slightly robotic.
Oh no. We'll kick it to James. Let's see if it clears up.
Oh, hopefully my audio is doing okay.
Yep, your audio's good.
No, great. So when we talk about first LARPs, there's so many firsts for me. Um, I guess the bigger question is how much am I planning on embarrassing myself during this interview? Because I can really embarrass myself right now in front of everybody. Because let me tell you, my very first LARP character. So my very first vampire character was a tabletop character, one shot, played a Tremere. It was fun. It was with friends. My first LARP character, not too long after that. Um, Bruja, which is one of my go-to clans to play specifically in LARP, and a very 15-year-old, 90-pound James decided that, well, I mean, you got to dress up, right? So I went and I bought a pair of like vinyl pants and fishnets, and my character was a Bruja bouncer who was the bouncer of a BDSM club who used a bullwhip as his actual weapon, and then later, after the first game, became the Bruja whip. Weirdly, again, I am 15. This is probably not what I should have been doing, but it was fun and it was funny, and I had a good time with that character. And that's one of the reasons Bruja is one of my go-to clans, and because they're fun to play, and I find that much like most of the clans in Vampire, they're much deeper than they present on the surface, and that's one of the best parts about it. Um, One of the reasons I keep going back to Vampire the Masquerade is how You can get away from the surface level of it, right? When you're playing something like D&D, not to insult D&D, but like when you're playing a fighter, you play a fighter who plays a fighter. Um, in Vampire, oftentimes my go-to clan, my favorite clan is La Sombra, and every La Sombra that I play is different in some capacity. At Darkness Emergent, I'm playing my very first ever Corsair La Sombra, and like, what does that mean for Donovan? How does he dress? The way that he dresses is very specific to the fact that he's a Corsair, and so um, yeah, it's just one of those things that you just when you come back to it, it doesn't matter if you played that clan before. You're not playing a fighter who's a fighter who's a fighter. Every Bana Hakim is different. Every La Sombra is different. The Tremere are all the same and are all trash, but that's fine. Um, but
That's true.
it's one of the reasons I love the game so much.
Yeah, so my first time being at DE, making my first character, um, probably made her too antisocial, which kind of fed more into me not being able to or being more shy. So that's something that I kind of learned when I went in to Darkness Emergent because so many people uh and all the storytellers being busy running around, and it's really about you engaging in people. And for me, my first time was a lot more me trying to break my own barrier to get into it. I knew
Mhm.
you guys through Discord vaguely. We never met in person, so I still had a lot of the social anxiety of like, I don't want to
Mhm.
approach these people and bother them. They look busy. So
Mhm.
with my time, I would also kind of like, if anyone's watching and they're gonna go to D and it's their first LARP and everything, reach out, make friends, meet people beforehand.
Mhm.
Definitely helps break the ice. Get yourself involved, find like a buddy. I know I went there with Connor, but he ran off doing his shepherd and the werewolves thing, and I it left me behind.
Yeah, I mean, like if you go with a friend. So I was actually at a panel just yesterday, right? And one of the
Hmm.
questions that they had at the LARPing panel at a SaboCon was, what's once you find the LARP that you want to go to, like, how do you prepare for it, right? And one of the things that we mentioned, right, that the panelists mentioned here, and myself included, was that definitely get involved. Right before the LARP, you don't have to get uber involved, but get on their Discord, right? Get on their social media. Find others that are going to the LARP, right? Talk to them. Making those connections are super important, especially for Darkness Emergent. Like we definitely encourage that. It's gonna make your experience at the LARP much better. I also say bring a friend, right? LARPing is better with friends, if you ask me. But usually a LARPing community, especially at Darkness Emergent, are very, very, very friendly, right? So, if you don't have a friend, that's okay. You're gonna find a friend. I mentioned hashtag family, right? The one thing that connects everybody at the Vampire the Masquerade LARPs is the fact that we're all avid fans of the fandom, right? And we just it really are like family, right? Like family there when we go. So, but yeah, I think that getting involved, Lindsay, is so important, right? Getting
Hmm.
getting into those communities and making contacts prior to LARP are key to having a good LARPing experience.
Well, I mean, even to make this personal for a second, the way that RC and I originally knew each other, yes, we were both at Saturnalia together, but we didn't really have much interaction with one another. However, the very first Darkness Emergent LARP, it was like, hey, we are in the same group together. Why don't we sit down and work through all of this and what it looks like? What does our coterie look like, right? Let's figure all of this out together. And it's always a warm and welcoming, creative process, right? And it's even more interesting being able to do it with strangers because they will come up with ideas that you never thought of. And so a
Mhm.
lot of the way that like mine and RC and Chris's dynamics worked in that very first Darkness Emergent LARP for us was really all made in the weeks leading up to it, and that
Yeah.
made it even more exciting. And they were strangers to me going into the LARP, and by the end I found some of the best friends that I will have forever, hopefully.
I love that. Yeah. It was an experience. It was great. I mean, you really truly make lifelong friends, I feel like when you meet others at a LARP, right? Especially when you continue going to LARPs with them.
Yeah.
James took a break here for a while. But we kicked off right where we left off, right at LA, and that was a lot of fun. So, and we hopefully look forward to seeing him again in LA next year, right? If James can swing it. So we miss Donovan, and it's
I'm
nice to have
planning on
him.
it.
That's
It was
awesome.
really interesting because you get to do the great thing about Vampire the Masquerade is how like in real life in real time it is. So leading up to this last event in Los Angeles, there was the conversation being had. Well, hey, this is where Donovan and Camilla left off at the last game. Let's find an in-game reason why I have been away the way that I have, and let's make it an obstacle that the two of them have to overcome with one another because we have unresolved things from the previous LARP. And
Hmm.
so it's taking something from the real world and just reincorporating it in a way that is honestly very fascinating to me that we can work those things into the story.
It's a lot of fun, definitely.
I feel like that's one of the things, like, at least with DE being it twice a year now,
Hmm.
like, if you're not continuing, say, online with the people that you meet, like, having those reasons, like, why haven't we, reached out and talked to each other? Unlike normal LARP games where, like, every month you're meeting the same people and
Yeah.
continuing that story.
Yeah, I think, and James, you can talk more about that, right? Because I know that you attend the Austin LARP pretty regularly, right?
I do. I actually wrote a good chunk of this season for it.
Amazing.
Nice.
Yeah, so with the blockbuster LARPs, right? A lot of them are one shots, right? So you'll go and you'll portray a character. I'll talk about the night in question here for a hot second. Like that's a one shot, right? That's a Vampire the Masquerade, Sabbat, Splatterpunk LARP that takes place in Austin. I've been to it just once here, just last year. We had a lot of fun. It's a very
Yeah,
intense
we
LARP.
did.
Yeah. But it's great, right? But that LARP is again one time and you're done with that character, right? Versus a chronicle like Darkness Emergent, where it allows you to continue playing a character over a period of time. Like again, Camila, I started playing her in San Antonio, November 2023. She's gonna turn 2 years old in November in Atlanta, right? I've been playing her consistently since then. Um, and so you can't do that typically at Blockbuster LARPs, but Darkness Emergent is different in that it allows you to do that, to keep bringing that character back if you want, with a story that is somewhat connected, right, in between events, which I think is great, right? But then again, like again, those one-shot Blockbuster LARPs are also kind of nice because it lets you explore different characters, right? And usually in intense situations, and you can put that character down and kind of walk away, right?
Mhm.
But yeah, I mean, the monthly LARPs, James, it's still being held, right? The Awesome LARP, obviously
Yeah.
you wrote the next season for it. How many are in attendance right now? About 30, 40 people?
Yeah, it'll vary based on game. With the final game of season two is coming up in a week, I think, actually.
Oh,
Oh, wow.
Um,
exciting.
and so yeah, and the stories are not connected. Season one was its own thing. Season two is its own thing. I was a player during season one, and I found out about the creation of that LARP because of the night in question, because of it's all people here in Austin. And then they were kind enough to bring me in and let me write some of the story for season two. And we're about to wrap up season two this next week. And then there'll be a break, and hopefully there will be a season three. And yeah, we're talking. It's sometimes there will be 30, 40 players. Sometimes we've had much more than that. Like I know that
Mhm,
during season one we were hitting capacity at some of the places that we were running it at, and we've been running. And the game is not run at a central location. We actually have been running them at various establishments within Austin, especially art galleries that
mhm,
are kind enough to have us at those. And the consistency in those is not necessarily because the season one is not season connected to season two. It's the players themselves and getting
mhm.
to meet new people, and then from that experience. Going into the next LARP saying, like, oh my gosh, I loved getting to play with you at the last game. Why don't we make something new together from there? So,
It's very exciting that you're coming up on the final stretch.
It's pretty cool. I wrote a good chunk of the first part of the game, and then I had to take a break due to some real
Mhm.
life issues, and then I came back as a player for the second half of the game. And so what was really cool about that is I got to see all of the little threads and stuff that I was writing, seeing how people reacted to all of it. And even when I wasn't actively playing or writing for the game, because we're such a tight community, people would be messaging me all the time, like, "Oh, I got to tell you about what happened with this NPC or that NPC." And like, there's something like that warms my storyteller heart when people just want to share their stories about like NPCs that I wrote. It's just it makes me so happy.
So, building off of that, kind of where you've gotten to see where your story threads have come from all the players joining back in, uh, what do you find the most fun and rewarding about LARP compared to like doing tabletop or any other interactive games?
I'll talk. So it's you when you play Vampire the Masquerade with a group of people, right? V5, it's gonna be maybe 5, 6 players, right? And maybe you'll run with that troop for a couple years, right? They become really good friends. When you join a LARP, it's 20, 30, 40, 50 people, right? That friend group gets big really, really fast, right? And it's really great because you build such wonderful friendships. And you get to like James was saying earlier, right? You get to build these stories, these intertwined stories, and the characters themselves, these original characters, really blossom sometimes into something that you didn't like really imagine, right? Because you have all these input from all these different people who are wanting to interact, right? Maybe be a part of your history, build history together, etc. And you start with an idea and you have a community that really kind of makes it not only a reality, right, but really helps you make it something amazing. So, yeah.
To that point, to the point of collaboration for this, just to use a personal example for it, leading up to the events of the Darkness Emergent LA game, because I had been out of the loop for the last couple of games. I had missed Vegas and Chicago, I believe. um, and I got into the personal ties channel within the Discord, and I said, "Look, Donovan is a Corsair. He's a weapons dealer. There's a reason why he's out doing these things. Here's some things about my character, um, and I'm coming back to play in this new game. Who would like to make ties with me?" And the response that I got was just so like overwhelming and in a very positive and great way that everybody was like, "Oh, this your character. What if your character like helped me get smuggled out of Japan, like and it was just like a really cool way. There's something beautiful about LARP, no matter whether it be Darkness Emergent or any other type of vampire LARP, where it's such a collaborative process
Hmm.
that as shy as you may be about stepping your toe into the water, I promise you, everybody there is excited for you to be there,
Yeah.
wants to collaborate with you, and wants to experience whatever story you're going to go through together. So, like, even if you're super shy about it, whether it be Darkness Emergent, The Night in Question, whatever LARP it is, if it's a local troop game, which if there are some, find them and play in them.
Hmm.
But the beauty of LARP is the way that it's such a collaborative storytelling medium. And you'd be doing yourself a disservice if you just if you don't jump in the deep end, then I don't know what to tell you.
People are scared, right? So let's talk
Yeah.
about
Yeah.
the deep end, right? People are scared about that deep end. I wasn't really familiar with the concept of the deep end in LARP until I started playing in Darkness Emergent, right? When someone brought it up, and I was like, you know, if you're playing Chronicle, right, you're playing a character like this, like, why not jump into that deep end, right? Why not go all in, right? Um, get in there, get involved, don't be afraid. I say, make a splash if you can, right? There's a concept of yes and, right? And playing a lift, right? If you follow the yes and where James tells me something, he wants my character to do something, and I say absolutely yes, and I'm going to add something onto it, right? Like that is playing to lift. We are lifting each other's experiences in a positive manner, right? And I can tell you the majority of larpers are like that. They want to they play to lift, right? They're supportive and they're gonna yes and some of the most craziest ideas, right? And it's like those ideas that like kind of blow your mind and you're like yes and let's go, right? That make LARPing I think phenomenal in a lot of ways and different than Vampire the Masquerade, right? Just if you sit at the table, I mean like tabletop. Because you can have some amazing experiences with your group of 5 friends, but it does not compare to the kind of experiences that you can have at a LARP. It just doesn't, right? In that immersive environment with that many people, even if it's just a LARP of 30 or 40 versus like 300 plus, it is a wild ride every single time. You don't know what you're in for, but it's always a fun time.
Yeah, and I definitely agree with that, and to not be afraid to try something, because like in LA, our scene society had to protect a statue, and we had another player, completely new, first time that they were at D, first time LARPing, come over, and they had been convinced by the mole in our faction to try and rob us. and and we were helping him. We were walking him through like, all right, these are your abilities. Try them on us. Let's see what happens.
Hmm. Yeah.
And then afterwards, shaking hands and having that role play moment of him walking away, not telling us who put him up to it.
Yeah, yeah, you get a lot of experiences like that. I remember James Donovan walked up to Camila at LA and had said, "Hey, there's this La Sombra, Victor, and I've been talking to him about a couple of things, and I think he's jumping like a little bit too far in. Like, let's kind of talk with him, right?" And remember, James, he wanted to become I think he wanted to take he didn't want to be a baron, right? He was all somber, didn't want to be a baron. By the end of the conversation that Donovan and Camila had with him, he was all in. He was like, "We're gonna take over Sao Paulo." You know what I mean? Like it's gonna be a whole thing, and that's like a lot of fun, right? Like you could see him go, "Wow, this is a
But
really good idea."
the
Yeah,
player lit up, and it was so
yeah,
some of my best one of my best role playing experiences of all time was
yeah,
that scene with all of them. Just seeing how the player, who was very nervous, because I did get to speak to the player outside of the game, who was very nervous to come in, especially because um, he was worried that maybe his English wasn't going to be good enough for the LARP
Mhm.
and several other factors. He goes, "I just had such a good time with all of you," and like that is what makes
yeah,
LARP for me, and that's why I keep coming back.
yeah, definitely.
So, what is your guys' most memorable LARP moment? I know you
Yeah,
mentioned
so
that one was pretty big, but are there any other ones?
there was a time, I still to this day, I think Chicago. I talk about Darkness Emergent Chicago because it was such an important LARP for me personally. There were some moments where I felt like my character Camila really got to shine. Right, there was a plot in the Chicago Darkness Emergent where a lot of folks get this wrong, right? So the actual plot was that the La Sombra were trying to win a Primogen seat, right, at the Chicago court, right? And a lot of players thought that the actual incentive was for the La Sombra to join the Camarilla. But by that time, the La Sombra were already in the Camarilla. They just
Mhm.
didn't have representation formally, right, in the Chicago court. And the Chicago court, as we know, right, is the jewel of the Camarilla. It sets precedents, right? So if you have Jackson say yeah, right, the Prince Jackson says yeah, the Lasambre can have a Primogen, then it sets precedence for the rest of the courts in the Camarilla that there can be a representation for the Lasambre, who are still kind of looked down upon in the Camarilla, right? Anyway, so I got a chance to I created a petition. So I love props. So with LARP, you can bring your own props most of the time, right? As long as you're being respectful and you're not getting in the way of a plot, right? So I brought up my own prop, and I had players sign this petition that I wrote, right? Um, knowing that there was going to be some plot around the La Sombra. So the petition essentially said that that the La Sombra should not have to pay, or the Sabbat coming in from into the Camarilla shouldn't have to pay any kind of blood tax, right? And it said like they paid enough. Let's drop it, Prince Jackson. So I got to hand that to him during the Meet the Court event, the smaller section of the LARP for Chicago, and kind of had a back and forth with him, right? And that was a really cool moment for me. And then the next evening, with the larger LARP, some 250 plus players, right? I got a couple of moments where I got to kind of just bring the room together and kind of like really just have all these players come and try to support the La Sombra cause, right? We had to collect these little like blood jewels, and by the end of the night, I had like I don't know, like 50 or 60, like a bunch of bags I was carrying because players were coming to me, like giving them to me, right? So it was really neat to be a part of that. I felt like a politician because at the end, the La Sombra did get a chance to have a primogen, right? So we
Mhm.
won, and the room erupted into like people just being so happy, like clapping and shouting and everything, right? And people like came up to me and were like patting me on the back, right, and on my shoulders, and it was just like giving me hugs, and I felt like I just won an election, right? So it was just really cool, and I keep kind of coming back to that moment in my head. So that was my favorite moment in LARP.
I'll give a brief one from the most recent event, and then I'm going to give a cheat answer. The really brief one from the last event was uh, at one point during the LARP, just because of Donovan and Camila's connection to one another, I was going to be there to just be her like backup while she was attending a big political event where there was going to be a debate between the Cam and the Anarchs. And somehow, by a twist of fate, um, Miss Magitech specifically, Donovan just ends up at the table and she's like, get this man a sash. And I'm just like suddenly at the debate table out of nowhere. And I'm like, wait, somebody hand me the papers. What are we debating about? I need to like, it was just a hilarious and fun and very intense moment that I had a blast with. My cheat answer though is when it comes to LARP, some of the best moments that I've ever had, and I feel like this is not said enough, but there is a feeling that a storyteller has after a successful arc. Like maybe it's that night, maybe it's the night afterwards, but when everybody is just excited and everybody wants to talk about the game that you just
Mhm.
ran and they just want to tell you about the stories that they came up with over the course of the night with the other players. There is a magic and a wonderment to that that I don't know how to put into words when people take the thing that you created and they loved it and they made it their own and all they want to do is talk about how much they loved what you did. Those have always been my favorite moments. Um, because that's a shared experience. That's
Mhm.
the thing that you crafted. It is the yes and but with a storyteller. And so a lot of the stories that I've written that I've had the opportunity to walk away from, even when I was doing the White Wolf demo team work, um, my job was to go into a convention, run a 2 hour, 3 hour game real quick. It was supposed to be very introductory for people. Um, and hearing people go, "Oh my God, I loved that game so much. I want to take this character home and maybe put this in my own campaign or do this thing." Those moments are you cannot put a price on them.
Yeah, now that you're talking about it from like a storyteller, right? And I want to talk about like an organizer, right? So
Mhm.
we were very lucky to be able to put on Seraphim Club, right? So in Vegas, we came up with a concept called Club Seraphim, and it was a club night, right? Folks have been asking for a nightclub, succubus club style club, right? And we hadn't been able to give it to them. And when I joined the team, I got a chance to do that, right? So, Seraphim Club is led by, players, and organizers, and it's for the players essentially, right? And our first Seraphim Club, we were very concerned, right? Because like this hasn't been done before in Darkness Emergent, right? Got to make sure the lighting's correct. We got to make sure the music is correct, right? We got to make sure that we have the dancer sort and the mood and the vibe. And Vegas was so successful. The amount of feedback that we heard was like, this is exactly what we needed, right? I some folks, some players told me that they'd never even attended a club, right? Or had never had a chance to like give a dollar bill to a dancer, right? And it was the first time doing it. I'm like, that is so cool, right? So yeah, because we got such like amazing feedback, we felt so great, right, to be able to do that. As a consequence, we put on Seraphim Club again in LA. We also threw to Succubus Club, right? Which was a massive hit. We were so lucky to be able to be a part of that and throw that club on. So I think there's definitely that fuzzy feeling that you get, right, when you work so hard to put on these events, and you get this great feedback, and people are talking about it or even asking you, "Hey, when's the next one going to be, or is it going to be there?" Right, and you're like, "Yeah, it is. We're excited," right? So, yeah.
uh, I think the Succubus Club is and Seraphim, like all the clubs and the afters are probably like one of the best, like to cool down afterwards and kind of like slowly transition. Like you can still be in character, but then you can also have that moment where there's not any pressure to just go over everything with everyone.
Hmm.
Um,
Yeah.
and kind of,
I found in my experience it was an even mix of both. There were people that wanted to
hmm
like role play just a little bit to like I don't know take the edge off and wind down from it, and then at some point they transitioned to our mortal lives and
yeah,
hey, let's just get on the dance floor and have a good time.
that's exactly
Hmm.
what I did. Just slowly ease back down and then be ready for the night to be over.
Hmm.
And kind of going back to memorable moments for myself, um, I have to say that when me and you were like plotting with all the delegation stuff, just Evie
That
and
was that
Donovan
was
going over everything and Mata giving us the information, even though it did not play out the way we thought it was
mhm,
going to play out. It was such a good time to
mhm.
be able to like try and make those plans against the anarchs.
And you made a lot of that evening for me because there was a lot of because there was so much stuff going on, and I hadn't really pre-planned much with anybody. Getting to run around with you was a big highlight for me because I went from not really knowing what my involvement was going to be to suddenly, oh, I am in the middle of it. All right, we are off to the races. Let's go. You know, just two thieves in the night. Let's make a mess of things. So
Yep. Especially it was even easier when we were both coming from Arsene. So
yeah.
we just get done with one meeting and then we're like, all right, we got to discuss this.
Hmm.
All right. So, um, for your guys, when you were making your characters, how do you usually approach building your LARP characters? Like, do you start with a trope, a concept? Do you think about costumes first? Like, how do you go about making your LARP characters?
You want to talk about this one first, James?
Yeah, I'll try. I think that it's such a varied process because I've been doing it for so long. Oftentimes, I'll look for a theme or something that I haven't done before. Is there maybe a clan that I haven't played? Um, so, like, let's take Donovan for instance. So, obviously, I love La Sombra. I love playing La Sombra. Um, and so, going into DE, I said, what can I bring to the table with La Sombra that I haven't done before? And just going over the lore again, it was like Corsairs. I've never, man, I want to be a pirate. Let's do that. And then from there, there's a lot of different parts of the process where I am not personally a player who builds my character around how much damage I can do. I tend to play more social characters. Um, so it was like, what would he be like as a social person? What would a corsair be in the modern times? He would be an arms dealer. Okay, let's see what does that look like. What is that? What languages would he speak because he travels the way that he does? What would he look like? At the time, we had a little group chat going on because we had never role played together for that first Darkness Emergent, and so I was like showing them like my basically little Pinterest outfit boards of like, what do you guys think of this for like, does this say Corsair to you? And like, it was kind of Donovan was kind of collaborative actually at the very beginning. I really love that. So it's different things. I will say the thing that always solidifies the character for me, if I had to give a definitive answer, is by the time I get towards the end of the character writing process, I sit down and make a playlist. And that tends to be the thing that truly puts me in the mindset. So to give away my part of the process when I get ready for a LARP, my one big thing that I do is I take a shower and then I get into costume, and while I do that, I'm listening to the playlist for my character and I'm thinking about him and what the night has in store and where it's going to go from there. And those are the things that click into place for me, so that when I walk through those doors and they say game on, I'm already in that mindset.
Yeah, so for me, heritage is really important, right? So I was born in Mexico. I'm a Latina, right? And whenever I create a character, I always try to give them that cultural flavor, right? So bringing in that culture to me is very important. So once I have the idea of a concept, I start with a concept, right? What clan are they, right? With Camila specifically, I had been told the running joke in our friend group was that you love the Banu Hakim, RC, but you're actually a La Sombra. And I was like, I'm not a La Sombra. Like, what are you talking about? No, I'm a Banu Hakim, right? Anyway, so I'm like, you know what? Like, I'm gonna just kind of, I'm gonna lean in, and I did. I leaned in hard, and here we are, right? But once I have the clan down, right? The La Sombra were an easy choice because of their the background in Spain, obviously, right, in
Hmm.
Mexico, and their also their Catholic culture, right, too, and so that was really easy for me, right. So once I had chosen the concept, the clan, right, I kind of build from there, right. I know that I wanted Camila to have been born in Mexico, right. I know that I wanted her to be a part of the Sabbath, so I look at the lore, right. That's important. I look at the lore and I make sure that it makes sense in the lore. um, I was talking to one of the developers of By Night Studios a couple of months ago, actually, and we were talking about building characters that play against the grain, right? But do so in a way that does not break the fine lines that exist in Vampire the Masquerade, right? Like you can't play a vampire that is a magician and is part werewolf. That kind of breaks things a little bit, right? So keeping character concepts realistic and fun and interesting without actually breaking those parameters, right? So building them right at the edges, even pushing it a little bit, but never actually breaking them. So I always wanted to, I try to make characters that are interesting, right? That are set in canon in the right way, right? Follow the rules well. And also are flexible. Their histories are flexible because one of the things that I found pretty early on is that you can have a character concept, right? You can build them. You get their name, right? You get how they dress. You start talking to others about, hey, past relationships. Those are important, right? Making those ties. Um, and then finally, a playlist is big, right? Camila's playlist is probably going on 16 hours at this point, right? Getting into it helps me get into character definitely. But being flexible with that background and that history is really important because what happens, especially in a game like Darkness Emergent, is that you're going to find new players, right, to connect with, and their characters are going to want to be tied to you somehow, right? And being able to say, oh, well, you know what, like let's say that we knew each other between 1980 and 1990, right? And we did this together. Being flexible and open so that you can allow others to be a part of your story. That's really important, I think. And it's kind of one of my hard rules is that I never create a concept that can't change around a little bit, right? If it's too rigid, it could be problematic, right? So Camila's, she's a sheriff. She is a La Sombra, in Phoenix, Arizona. But she's also a businesswoman, right? She runs a wine business for the blood circulatory system. And I really expanded on that. It started small, right? The fact that she's a sommelier, it started small, and that has really grown. I've grown a brand, right? Camila's brand essentially. And it's just others have helped me kind of build that brand up. I call it building a legend, right? When others help you build your legend. And that's what I mean when I say having a flexible history because a lot of the times people are going to want to influence your character somehow and it ends up being really great, right? You end up having a lot of fun. So yeah.
Very nice. And you have probably created the most recognizable character in DE. I don't
Oh, thank
think
you.
I don't think there is
Yeah.
a single person who wouldn't know you or Camila at any point.
She's an interesting character, right? Because as you know, Lindsay, you and I have RP'd over text, right? And
Mhm.
Camila can be very intimidating over text. She's very
Mhm.
scary over text, right? Um, but at Darkness Emergent, I have to take her into what I call host mode, right? She is a hostess, right? She's a sommelier, so she has to be. So she turns on her charisma, right? And she's everybody's friend, essentially, right? And so it's you gotta in a social game like Darkness Emergent, and like what James said, right? You don't want to build a character that is too physical, right? And isn't able to like really want to talk with others or engage with other people. Leave that for another game, right? Or leave that for your text RP, right? Your character can definitely have that like broody side and wants to not speak to others. But leave that out of like Darkness Emergent or games where like you're really gonna want to be social, because otherwise you end up kind of building yourself into a corner, right?
Mm-hmm.
And that's hard to get out of sometimes. So
Hey, I
I
gotta say, not for nothing, but like I've done horror. I've run horror LARPs like Mythos Houston. I have participated in splatterpunk LARPs like the night in question. And probably the most terrifying experience I ever had to do was walk into the room at Darkness Emergent LA for the first time after not speaking to Camilla for like 2 years. Like probably the most terrifying thing I had. I was like, oh, this is gonna end so poorly. She's gonna be so mad.
and she was.
All right. So, going off of having an intimidating character and like the moments that you'll get in LARP, how do you handle conflict like between characters and bringing also when that comes out of character with people?
You want to take that, James?
Sure. So I want to speak to this as a storyteller, I think. Um, because I have been LARPing a long time. I've been storytelling a long time. And there is no world in which my experience being a storyteller does not bleed into how I resolve conflict in LARPs going forward. So I will say this, I think LARP is a collaborative process, and it always should be. And I speak, and the reason I say that is that like I said, I come from the early days of LARP, and in things like the Camarilla, the MES, there was a culture of um, wanting to win, and that was probably the biggest change that I noticed when I came back to LARP after having taken the break that I did, is that the mindset of LARPers had become, instead of I'm playing to win, I'm playing to craft a story together. And so LARP, as it is a collaborative process, and you should always be communicating all of the time, down to everything, down to combat, down to I'm going to punch your character in the face. Yes, ultimately there are numbers there that if you really need to, you can say my numbers are bigger than yours. I get to punch you in the face. I'm gonna tell you right now, that's not fun. It's not fun for the person being hit. It is, you may think it's fun because you got to do the thing that you want to do, but it makes for a bad role playing experience.
Mhm.
And so when it comes to conflict in games, it should be collaborative, good and bad. And if things are getting personal, I recommend that you step away.
Mm.
Maybe you consult the storyteller to handle the situation. There are other ways to go about it. But if things are getting personal for you at a LARP, then things need to happen, whether that's your fault, the other person's fault, whoever's fault it is. Walk away from the situation, have somebody else resolve it. It should not become personal. That is what storytellers are there for. But again, 99.9% of the time, LARP is a collaborative process. We are here to tell a story together, right? Specifically in the world of darkness. What's the line that Jason Crowley says? Something like, let's tell a vampire story, right?
Yep.
For
But he
starters.
always says, we're here to tell a story together. And a lot of the way that I think about LARP is no different than when I was a Cub Scout and we used to tell ghost stories around the campfire. People contribute, people talk, it's all fun. And at the end of it, we should be able to shake hands or hug or whatever and feel like we all crafted an experience with one another. And if that is not happening for you, I hope that you find a place in which can, because LARP should always be welcoming. We are community. We live and die by having people come to our games. And if somebody is ruining the experience for you, it needs to be known. It needs to be told to the storytellers or the people running that game so that they can make corrections. But when it comes to conflict resolution in game, we're a collaborative process. We do it together.
I can't agree more, right? I mean, like, consent, 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 right? Because, and I'll speak to you as a player, right? I'll speak to Blockbuster LARPs and the amount of money that we spend on attending some of these events sometimes, right? And get really expensive really fast. Nobody wants to spend that kind of money to go and have a bad time, right, at these events. And so we always tell others, make sure that when you are engaging in any kind of intense role play, that there's consent there, right? And just because you consented to a scene prior to starting it, it could go wrong real fast, right? And you must stop it, right? If it's gone too far, if it becomes personal, and then I'll bring up the concept of bleed, right? Bleed is a very real thing. It doesn't matter how long you've been LARPing or playing a game, it's bound to happen, right? And so there are some things that you can do as a player to kind of protect yourself from bleed. And I'm going to actually talk a little bit about the panel that I just attended. Lamar, the con guy, was there, and he gave a great example of kind of bleed and what a player can do to prevent bleed. It's kind of like this. He decided to use the metaphor of like wearing armor, right? When you go on the LARP floor, right, your character, right, is that armor that you're wearing, essentially, right? You are not that person, right? You are still yourself. You're portraying a character and you're putting that armor on, right? So when you're on that floor, you have to remind yourself, right? You know, if Camila and James are getting into a tense conversation, right? It's not James, being mean to me, right? It's our two characters who are, having an intense moment, right? Um, there's consent there, right? And at the end of the night, I can take the Camila armor off, put it aside, and James and I can just have a conversation, hang out, right, and have fun, and not take anything personally. In fact, we'll talk about how much fun that was, right? And we'll have good memories, right? So I think that's really important, right? So consent, having that consent, making sure that you're aware of your own feelings, and again, because bleed will happen, right? Step away, like James said. I have a couple of hard rules when it comes to my RP, right? I tell folks, especially if I never LARP with you, I will not be your rival or your enemy, right? Just won't do it. I need maybe a session or two to kind of see how we interact with one another, right? And then if, we vibe well, we can talk about a story where maybe we become rivals or enemies, right? Once I've gotten that trust with you, right? Um, Also, when it comes to intense scenes, right, that a player has perhaps negotiated with another player, being able to respond while using the safety mechanics, right? We all know what the safety mechanics are, right? Okay, okay, right? Anything that is a or a thumbs down, that's a no. That's a stop. You're not okay, right? And it doesn't matter whether like, hey, again, we negotiated and why can't I continue to yell at you, right? If that player says I'm not okay, right? Then you stop and either you walk away, you take that break, right? And you really consider the fact that you may have hurt feelings there, right? You may want to have a conversation with them with a mod after the fact or a storyteller, right? But you don't want to let those feelings kind of sit there and then they fester. You don't want that. It can become a problem. So what I say is wear your armor, right? Realize that it's an armor and then put it down, put it away. Talk to others, arrange scenes, discuss those intense scenes ahead of time, right? And make sure that you know how to use the safety mechanics in LARP, right? And know that the community there is there to support you. The mods, the STs, all those people are there to support you. You don't have to, continue going to a LARP and always being afraid of having a bad time, right? There are bad actors out there, unfortunately, right? But I feel like a lot of like the troops and the LARPs are able to eventually identify them, and they kind of walk themselves out of the LARP scene essentially. And unfortunately, that's a thing. It happens. But thankfully at Darkness Emergent and the LARPs that I've attended, I've never run into that. I feel like I'm very, very grateful and very thankful for that. So
I mean, anybody who's attended a Night in Question game has definitely
yeah,
chanted the phrase, "People are more important than LARPs."
exactly.
Mhm.
Yeah, absolutely. And that's I again, I can't agree more with that. The story, your character is not as important, right, as real life, or your real life feelings. So yeah.
And I will 100% second, third, fourth, if it's your first time with someone, not making antagonistic connections right away until you're able to get on the floor and kind of see how you're going through stuff. And for anyone new going into DE, I would 100% say if you can make it to LARP 101, the storytellers
Yeah.
running it do a great job of walking you through like all the different hand signals, consent, who to talk to if something goes wrong. So you have those resources, you know, 100% always go to it.
Yeah,
Um,
I want to give a shout out to a player. He goes by 5N or Sin, right? We had a really great scene at Darkness Emergent, and it wasn't a negotiated scene. It kind of just happened. And by then, I'd played with 5N for probably about 4 or 5 Darkness Emergents at that point, maybe 4. And we never had a chance to really interact in character, but it was always like they were not enemies, but, they kinda just tolerated each other, right? And, things just went wild in LA, and they had a pretty contentious scene where, some words were exchanged, right? And it was very high drama, and the Lasombra around me were like, "Is this gonna get bad?" Right? Because he was an anarch, right? Bruja. And I'm trying to tell him, "No, it's gonna be fine," right? I'm trying to reassure the clan members that it's gonna be fine. And I see Sin, like, running back because he had walked off, right? He comes running back, and he, like, gives me, like, a high five, right? Like, he was like, "That was awesome," and I thought that was amazing, right? Because, like, it's that's those are the kind of scenes that, like, may be intense and you may not negotiate, right? But because you're at a game with players that are veterans, right? They're willing to have those scenes and it be cool, right? And you can walk away and no hard feelings anywhere, right? But anyway, yeah, just a shout out to him because that was a really cool scene.
and that's so great that you guys were able to have that and do the quick check-in with each other.
Yeah, yeah,
There's something really beautiful about getting through a really intense scene and having another player, like, right after the scene wraps, just go like this and go, "Hey, you good?" And you just go, "Oh, yeah," and, like, you just, like, hug it out, like, right, you
yeah,
just break character for just a moment, even in the middle of the LARP to be like, "That was so good," and, like,
yeah,
you like, "Alright, let's g get back in character, alright." Like,
yeah.
there's that moment of checking in that's it feels nice.
Yeah, and those check-ins are so important, right? Like, I can't
Yeah,
I can't stress that more and enough. Really, truly, check in. If something is feeling like too intense, right? Check in and make sure that they're good, right, before you proceed.
right.
And kind of coming off of this, what advice would you guys give to new people coming in who are maybe nervous about encountering these kind of conflict scenes? Like we have check-ins and stuff, but is there anything else that you would kind of give to new players?
I say really know your boundaries, right? I whenever I make a new connection, I always ask the player, "What are you looking to accomplish?" Excuse me, at the LARP, right? What is a successful LARP night? What does that look like for you, essentially, right? And what does it not look like for you, right? So I feel like if a player is going to be coming into a LARP, right? Know what it is that you want out of it, right? Know your boundaries. Especially like we said, like my one of my hard boundaries is no enemies, right? Or rivals for individuals that I haven't played for a while. Um, and be ready to have moments where maybe perhaps you thought you wanted something or you thought that your character may want to pursue something, and being able to tell yourself, you know what, like, no, I don't want to do that, right? There is a signal that allows you to opt out of a scene, right, without anyone even asking a question, right? And that is this, right? When you're like this, that means that you're gone out of that scene, and no one can really ask you why. It's very likely that someone will go to you and say, "Hey, you are right," after the fact, right? but that is like widely accepted. So don't be afraid to, again, we say make a splash, right? But if you go in and you make a splash and you're like, ooh, that was too big of a splash, and suddenly I don't want to be, doing this anymore. Take a break, right? Breathe. Um, you know, opt out of a scene, right? Drink water. Drink water. We don't drink
Please
enough
hydrate.
water. Yeah, we
Please
Who
don't.
hydrate,
hydrates?
Larp.
Yeah. Yeah. Drink water. Take a moment, right? And when you're ready to go, get back out there, right? And also maybe you won't be ready to go. Maybe you kind of are done for the night. It's okay to walk away, right? You may feel a little bit of FOMO, but you need to do what's best for yourself, right? So put yourself first in that respect. Right, and make sure that you are, you are ready to step away if you need to.
I agree. And we had just gotten done kind of briefly talking about bleed, but I want to touch on that word real quick, just for anybody who might be listening that may not understand what that means in the context of LARP, and that's in the most basic term, when your character's emotions impact you as a person, and that is a simplified answer. And there are like college papers that are done about what
Yeah.
bleed is and what it means. Um, but when those things start to happen, where you feel overwhelmed by emotions at a LARP, it's important that you do take that time for yourself, and that you breathe, and that you step away. And like you said, RC, if you need to, maybe tap out, don't think that that is defeat. You
Mhm.
have committed yourself so much to your character and the scenes that you're in that it does affect you. And that's not a bad thing. Don't beat yourself up for it. Let yourself rest, go to your hotel room,
Mhm.
watch an episode of something on Food Network. Like, let yourself come down from these things, because the one of the reasons that so many people do LARP, myself included, is how immersive it is.
Mhm.
And the reason we can be so immersive in LARP is that we're cognizant of what our own personal threshold, right? We
Mhm.
know we know I can get this far, but I don't think I could go farther than that when it comes to my acting with another player. It's an exercise in learning a lot about yourself. That's one of the cool things about LARP, like theater, like most interactive theater is. It's, you get to learn more about yourself through the characters that you play. And I mean, it's a known fact. Every player brings at least a fraction of themselves into every character they play. And any LARPer who tells you otherwise is lying or trying to sell you. Every single character I have ever played, you could be like, James, what did you bring to that character? Like, what part of that is you? And I'd be like, oh, I got a list. Where do we want to start? We want to start at the top. Um, but because of all of that, because you do bring yourself into it, and these things like bleed can happen, it's important to just be mindful to you personally. Like I said, take the breaks where you need, go get water where you have. There's times during LARPs where I just step away. It's probably the one thing that I miss now that I'm not a smoker anymore, because that was like a thing you could do as a LARPer, is just like go out and like have a cigarette and clear your head. But you could still do that. You go out, take a walk, go outside, breathe some fresh air, you know, just take a minute, because honestly, your character will only ever be as good as you portray them to be. And if you're not 100% when you're in the room LARPing with everybody, you're doing yourself, your character, and the other players a disservice. So take the breaks
Yeah.
where you need, hydrate, and just be the best you that you can be when you're on the floor.
Mhm.
Adding on to that, I would say, like, even if you don't experience bleed to the point where you have to like take a break mid game, I say after game, like just being able to like have that come down, talking at a character about everything that happened with the players is a great way to slowly disconnect as you're talking about your character separately from yourself. and the things that you did and experienced and everything like that kind of brings you out of it.
If I can make a recommendation, I know that not everybody can do it, but if you can, if you become a part, I'm going to talk specifically about Vampire for a second.
Mhm.
If you find yourself a part of a coterie and maybe you guys have a group chat, but you've never met each other or any of those things, before the LARP even happens, if you can, have a meal together.
Mm.
Something that our coterie did at the very first Darkness Emergent
Yeah.
was we made a pact, and you do not have to do this. This is overplaying our hand, but we had a pact because there was like 5 of us. That weekend, out of character, we would do everything together. We would walk
Mhm,
into rooms together.
mhm,
We'd go to Denny's together. We'd go do whatever. We went to a bar. We all went to the bar. I think
mhm,
we went to a couple of clubs together.
mhm,
And it was and again, not everybody has to do it, but at least like sit down with your group and learn who they are as human beings, because that will make you more comfortable when it comes time, and it will seem more realistic to other players,
mhm,
right? That, oh wow, all these players, they seem so natural. You guys may have just met 24 hours before, but you know what? At least you had a drink or a meal or a something together. Take a walk down a park together, and don't talk about games specifically. Maybe you could talk about how you got into the game,
mhm,
what games you like to play, but take those moments to learn your coterie and those people as individuals. There's a reason why I love my coterie the way that I do for Darkness Emergent, because we're called what we're called for a reason,
mhm.
and we are really family. And I would trust anybody in that group with anything. If I needed if something bad was going on in my life, I know that I could pick up my phone at 2 in the morning and probably call our RC, and she'd be like, "Yes, I'm here for you. What do you need?"
Absolutely, yeah,
And all
definitely.
of that happens outside of the game.
Mhm.
It's the human interaction with one another, because we are not just dots on a piece of paper when it comes to LARP. Just do not be afraid to take that part of yourself with you when you go into a LARP.
I'd say I have, without meaning to, been invited to the pregame dinners like every DE. I think in Vegas,
Yeah,
Nicholas dragged me along to that big dinner that we had with everyone, and then
yeah,
LA we actually planned one. So
we did.
definitely
Yeah.
getting out and getting to actually hang out with people and it not be about LARP and just
Mhm.
us is so helpful.
Yeah,
It'll
we've,
always come back to LARP. It will
it
Yeah,
always.
oh
will.
yeah.
Don't get me wrong.
Yeah. Yeah, we made a point to go out together or plan events before the actual LARP occurs, right? So that everybody can kind of touch base. We do that as a community. There's the Sanguine community. There's we're 30 plus strong, right? Darkness Emergent players mostly, and they you know they've had breakfasts, right? They've had dinners. One of the things that we also do is after the LARP itself, right? We'll basically go out and have a goodbye lunch, right? And it's a group of friends, right? Being able to touch base before they can't see each other again for 6, 7 months, right? And I think that's really important because again, we're friends first, right? So I think that's great.
Mhm. Okay, so getting to the last couple questions, I want to ask you guys, how has LARP changed since you first started? I know, James, you mentioned a little bit it being less play to win, but how would you guys say in other ways it has changed?
Let James start. He has more
Yeah.
experience there.
I mean, a lot of it, like I said, is we're at least the communities that I've been fortunate enough to be a part of. We are less play to win. It is about crafting stories with one another. It feels so much less combative, um, especially with our group here in Austin, because here in Austin we have not only the Austin Vampire LARP, but this is also where Jackalope Studios is located. And there's a bleed between the two. A lot of the same players and STs and things. Um, and so we are a community here, right? Like it's about when people are wanting to come into town because they've heard about the Austin Vampire LARP. It becomes a, hey, come on in. Hey, what do you need? Do you need to find somewhere to stay? Do you need, um, you know, recommendations? What can we do to make your experience here something memorable that will make you want to come back? And I feel like a lot of early LARP just was more about, hey, it's my Friday night, it's my time. I'm here to just ruin everybody's evenings because it would make my day better. Um, and I also think more people are willing to open themselves up as individuals a lot more than the way that they used to, and that's directly kind of a correlation between the whole aggressiveness of the way that LARP used to be, because the circles, at least I am fortunate enough to run in, are don't play to win. um, People from all places want to come in and not only experience a story together, but they actively want to make new friends within this community. And it's so cool to see. When I say that we have the Austin Vampire LARP, that's just because it's here in Austin. A majority of our players not from Austin.
Mm.
People are flying in from Chicago. People are coming in from California, and it's just a bi-monthly LARP, and it's because they love the people and the experiences they get to have. And other than like MES/CAM, which was kind of the only game in town back then,
Mhm.
people didn't do that. People would stick to their local troop games and never branch out outside of that. And I think because of that, with the way that we are now, we get to meet so many cool and amazing people from not only around the US, but from other countries that are now coming in to want to play in these LARPs. I have met people at the night in question that are from the UK, from just like Romania, just from all of these other places. And I just think that that's the coolest part of it, is that like the communities have become so warm and welcoming that like I could travel to Europe right now, and I'm pretty sure I got 5 LARPers I could stay with. And I
Mhm.
don't know if I could have said that 20 years ago.
Mhm. Yeah, I want to kind of riff on that a little bit, right? There is the community is global, right? It truly is global. With your larger blockbuster events, you're going to see individuals from all over the world attending, right? And it's really exciting to see that. Um, I want to talk a little bit about the 90s and the early 2000s, and a lot of folks. The 90s was a big time in the LARP community. I mean, you had LARPs that were massive, right? Home LARPs that were just huge. And a lot of those veteran players, right, were used to games that were a little bit more uh, uh, antagonistic, right? Yeah, the ideas of like main character syndrome, for example, or playing to win, gave LARPing at the time kind of a bad rep. Right. And so in the 2010s, that started changing a little bit, right? The vibe started to change in the community, and now, right, in the 2020s, it's completely different, right? We have players that haven't played in years, right, that were playing in the 90s, coming to these games expecting that same kind of like, okay, well, am I going to get kill boxed, right? That
Yeah.
word is a very triggering word for me because it's like that is absolutely a no, right? In the
It is a
LARPs that
LARP created word.
Yes,
Yeah.
exactly. So a kill box essentially is where a group of players will corner another player and make it impossible for their character to leave, and essentially that character ends up being killed. Right? There's no consent there, right? And it could be really kind of personally harmful, right? It's not fun. And so that is a word that I personally have like banned for myself, right? And do not tolerate on the LARP floor in any of the LARPs that I attend or help organize, because no, there is no fun Nobody gets to have fun there, right? So we've seen individuals again who have played in the 90s and the early 2000s come and expect that, and having to tell them like it's not like that anymore. The vibe is very different, right? Folks are there to really, again, tell a collaborative story, right? Um, the LARP is not about a single person, right? It is about the community and the folks that are there, right? And everybody is yes anding, right? And playing to lift, which I think sometimes, I mean, it did happen obviously in the 90s and early 2000s. Otherwise, I don't think LARP would have, continued to be as popular as it was then. But yeah, I feel like you had a lot more instances where, folks were kind of more aggressive in general, and played to win, and that left the veterans are a little, what we call it, traumatized. They tell their stories of back in my day, you know what I mean? And I'm just like, oh wow, that I don't want that, right?
Yeah.
So the scene has changed quite a bit, right? And the LARP organizers, I feel like, have really allowed the community to organize around this more positive vibe, and don't allow these kill boxes to occur, or the main character energy to really take over a LARP in any kind of way. So
Well, coming on to that, where LARP has changed, what would you guys tell someone considering their first event? I know we've gone over safety, we've gone over like making connections. Is there anything extra that you would give someone who's looking to take their first step into LARP, whether that is coming to DE or a troop game? Is there
budget,
any remaining advice?
budget, right? Unless you're going to be attending a LARP that is a local LARP that you can drive to or commute to in some kind of way, it's going to cost you something, right? Even your least expensive of LARPs are going to cost you 100, 150, $300, and that's for the ticket, right? Then you have to travel there somehow. So whether you're flying or you're driving, you gotta take that into respect, right? Lodging, that's going to cost you. Food, that's going to cost you. Costuming, that's going to cost you. When I started prepping for Camila for San Antonio, I bought a $20 dress. I bought a $20 dress and a $100 accessory, and that was pretty much the extent of it, right? Um, Now I'm dressing her up in ball gowns, and that you know what I mean. Like my budget has gone up considerably, right? But I budget, right, to make sure that I am going to have the money for my looks, right, and also lodging and food and all that jazz. Especially those folks who attend multiple LARPs a year, right? I'm going to give a shout out to Natasha, who is an avid LARPer. She attends pretty much every LARP she can get her hands on, right? She's Canadian and she's flying all around, right? And she has spreadsheets with her LARPing budgeting spreadsheets to make sure that she has the money for it. And I think that's amazing, right? So I say, definitely budget. Some LARP companies allow you to pay in installments for your tickets, right? Some of them are, priced out, and you cannot like just drop, $500 to attend a LARP, but you can put an installment in for 150 here, 150 there, and eventually build yourself up for it. So, that's a bit of advice that I would give. Budget.
I'm gonna try to go a little bit outside of the box because I know that I've talked a lot about getting into Discord and talking to other players, getting those communications established early. I want to throw this one out there, and will not be advice for everybody, but it will be for at least maybe one person out there. If you've got yourself and maybe 5 friends that are interested in LARP, before you ever go out to a Darkness Emergent game, pick up an old Laws in the Night and run a game with your friends. Be a storyteller for a minute. Run that game that you've always wanted to run. Make it silly, it could be goofy, you could do whatever you want with it, but pick it up and try it with a few friends if you can. If you can't, then everything else applies. Go into Discord, talk to the people you're going to be gaming with, tell them that you're new. Do not be afraid to tell people that you are new.
Yeah,
One of the
it's not a
greatest
bad thing.
one of the greatest experiences you can have going to a Rocky Horror Picture Show is telling them that you've never been to one live before, and it'll feel like you're being picked on, when you go to the Rocky Horror Picture Show and you will walk out of that experience being like, all of these people cared about me for tonight because they knew that I was new to them. And I'm going to tell you that LARP feels the same way. Do not be afraid to tell them it's my first time. I've never role played. I've never LARP. I promise you, we want you there and we want
Mhm,
you to come back.
mhm.
So just be open and communicate and drag your friends into it.
Yep, bring a friend, bring as many friends as you can. I also want to say that after you're done with LARP, right, most LARPs will have a feedback form, right? Fill that feedback form out, right? Because the LARP organizers read that feedback, right? They implement that feedback, and so your voice matters, right? Especially new players who have come in, right? And it's a brand new experience for them. We want to know how to make that experience even better, right? And with Darkness Emergent, right, we've done just that. We've implemented a lot of the feedback that our players have provided and have made the experience overall better, right? And even to this day, right, we're what 5 going on 6 here soon. We're still making changes to try to make it better. So there's not any one LARP that's going to get it right the first time, right? But the feedback that you provide as a consistent player or a new player is vital to making that LARP a success in the future.
Definitely with the feedback, especially because Darkness Emergent is listening and is improving every single time based on what everyone is putting on those forums. Um,
I would go so far as to say I think all advice, any suggestions that come into a forum, I pay attention to as a storyteller. But if I know that somebody's first time, it was their first time and they give me their feedback form, that hits me on a different level because they're seeing things in a way that nobody else in the game is seeing. And like, I need to take that into consideration as a storyteller.
Uh, Now I know you, James. You write for the LARP. RC, you do a lot of storytelling on Discord. If you guys could bring your own kind of story or side LARP or whatever to DE, what would you bring if you could have that kind of creative input?
So I was very lucky to bring Seraphim Club, right? Because even though it is a nightclub, we do run a small story around it, right? So being able to do that has been really wonderful. But I'll say something else, right? If I had a choice to bring a game, I personally, and this is going to be controversial, I love the Sabbat, right? Now in V5, you can't play a Sabbat. It's
Me
not
too.
allowed. But I think it has, a rich culture, and the lore is amazing. So I would bring a plot associated with the Black Hand, right? And maybe you can't play a Sabbath character because they're not allowed, right? But you could really kind of get nitty gritty in there, right? And be able to explore the rich lore that the Sabbath does have. I think that'd be a lot of fun. I mean, one of the reasons why I attended the night in question was because, like, hey, I want to play a Sabbath LARP. This is perfect, right? And it ticked off every single box, right? Essentially. Um, but I think that I would definitely bring that in. And also, when it comes to Darkness Emergent, right, the storytellers do a lot of work. They try to ensure that there's a lot of plots going on, right? But giving players time to connect on the floor and explore their own personal histories, right? And make that really impactful. As a storyteller, I'd love to be able to do that, right? Personalize some plots for a handful of players, so that they can really feel like they have that special moment on the floor. So, yeah.
I'm gonna be really selfish on this one because I feel like this entire time I've been like, let's talk about like what we can give to other players and all of this. I'm gonna be selfish for this one question, and that is Donovan's a Corsair, a game at sea.
Yeah.
These two things should kiss.
Darkness
Like
Emergent at sea.
At
like
sea
like
is
like
2027,
got like you
James.
welcome aboard to Donovan's vessel. The entire thing is gonna go because you're on my boat and maybe bad things will happen because I do associate occasionally with the Sabbat,
Yeah,
or
yeah.
did. Did is a very
Mm,
important word.
mm.
Did, do not, but did at one point. That is a known
Former
fact.
Sabbath. Former Sabbath are allowed. Yes.
Right.
Yeah, we are gonna
So,
have so we are gonna have Darkness Emergent at Sea in 2027, during the Valentine's Day time, right? So,
mm,
you should come, James. You should come.
we'll have to see what happens.
Yeah.
But yeah, I would. It would be wonderful to welcome all the players onto Donovan's vessel for what would be the most amazing game they would ever play. By the way,
Absolutely.
All right. So for the final question, uh, as players, what keeps you coming back to Darkness Emergent?
Oh, that's easy. The community, right? As an organizer now, right? So I have a full-time job, right? I have a full-time job. I'm a mom, right? A 6-year-old. And what I do for Darkness Emergent is volunteer. It's on a volunteer basis, right? Um, it's a lot of work, right? I spend a lot of extra hours making sure that, the communication, marketing, et cetera, the events are set up. And I do it because I love the World of Darkness. I truly love the World of Darkness. And I know that we know someone or have our own personal stories about how the World of Darkness did something so impactful for us at one point in our lives, right? That it becomes an integral part of who you are, right? So I go back because of the community, because I want to bring the World of Darkness to life, right? For those that want to be a part of it in that kind of immersive manner, right? And I'm just really grateful, honestly, to be a part of it all and to have a group of people who trust, right, By Night Studios to put on these LARPing events, and allow us to kind of bring the World of Darkness to life truly for those players. So thank you to that community who keeps on attending. It's been an amazing wild ride, and I can tell you that Atlanta and the rest of what's coming is going to be wild and a lot of fun. So yeah.
I'm very excited for it.
for me, it's the answer simple. It's all of you. Um, I've said several times through this talk that most of my experience in the world of darkness is that being a storyteller. And even though I am not a staff storyteller at Darkness Emergent, I think that whether you believe it or not, each and every one of you who participates in a LARP collaboratively, you are a storyteller, even if you don't think that you are. And all of you are the reason that I keep coming back. You are all the reason that after I took a hiatus for years from doing the thing that I was the most passionate about, but had been overwhelmed from years of doing it, that I still came back. And when I came back to my very first LARP, was the night in question, just post COVID, I was welcomed with open arms by total strangers who just heard me talk about my experience and they said, welcome back. You're here. You know,
Mhm.
it's easy to talk up the hashtag family as something that we just kind of use as a cute thing on Twitter or Blue Sky or whatever. But I've seen it in action. I've seen it in
Mhm.
action at the most recent Darkness Emergent event where people like just were looking out for one another and made sure that people were fed and hydrated, and maybe somebody looked a little stressed out and somebody stepped out of character and said, "Hey, how are you doing?" So you want to know why I keep coming back and doing this? It's because I see the quality of the people who come and do this hobby that I participate in. That for a game about monsters and exploring what it is to tap into the darkest parts of yourself, I see the most humanity around me when I walk into any one of these events. That's why I keep coming back, because every person that I'm lucky enough to role play with is a friend that I will have for the rest of my life.
Well said.
Yes. Absolutely.
All right. Thank you guys for taking the time to hang out and answer questions for everyone. Uh, it was really great, and I hope that everyone listening got to, take some advice, take some of the experiences that they can bring going forward. And if
Yeah, no,
there's
it was a pleasure, truly.
Absolutely.
and if there's anything else you guys want to say before we close it out, I will hand the floor to you guys.
I just want to say, right, that if if you have questions about LARPing, right, or you're looking for again a place to go LARP, attend a LARP, there are for Vampire the Masquerade LARPs. I'll say again, the worlddarkness.com, right, and the By Night Studios, they do have LARP finders. There is a Discord that not a lot of people know about called the LARP Place. And the LARP Place lists LARPs that are occurring in the United States and in Europe as well, right? Event organizers will post our LARPs there. It's a great space to go and kind of find out where the next best LARP is going to be, right? In your area and in other areas too. But in general, right, the LARPing communities, whether it's on Discord or Reddit, right, find your space, right? Find the community that is in the fandom that you want to attend a LARP for, and get involved, right? Talk, meet that community, ask questions, right? It's really the best way to get into LARPing. And if you're not already on the By Night Studios Discord, join us. Let's talk about Darkness Emergent. It's a really fun game, and I'm really excited to be a part of it.
For me, support your local gaming stores, support your local LARPs, and above all else, look after one another.
You guys have a good night. Thank you for coming on. And for anyone interested in that Discord, I'll actually try and get a link and send it out on my social medias for everyone in case you are looking for any local LARPs to be able to join. But
Thanks so much.
yep, have a good night.
Good night. Buenas noches.
All right, guys, thank you for chilling, hanging out. I appreciate you guys and your support. I will get back to streaming here starting Monday. It's probably going to be a mix of face cam and maybe VTubing. Uh, I'm trying to do a little bit more in person stuff, as a lot of you have seen with my TikTok becoming more LARP centric. So that'll be one of the big changes going forward. But I appreciate everyone who came, showed support. We will get back to it soon. But have a good night, and I will see you all next time. Bye.